In a previous video, I bought this Jeep for $2, but I had to spend double that to get it moving under its own power. So I was up to almost $6. At the end of that video, I said I was going to invest $200 into it to try to make it roadworthy. That did not go as planned. In my last video, I tried out a Chevy rotor in here. It got it running, but it broke eventually. What I didn't see at the time, it was actually smashing into that distributor cap, shaking it all over the place. I'm amazed it even ran at all. So I popped the $9.19 for a new cap, because I bet that one's beat up inside. Yep, those took a little bit of a beating. This should be a little better. The wires that round this engine were all torn up. Looks like water got in, started corroding things, and there are only 5 of them. Inside the car, I found a V8 cap with a set of wires. I already stole one to make it run. I'm going to steal the rest to make a set of 6 that match. Previously, I'd found a key in the vehicle, but it doesn't work with this ignition at all. I've had locks like this rekeyed. Usually it's about $50. BJ's Off-Road had a brand new lock cylinder with keys for $39. Probably not a bad idea to have fresh contacts anyway. These are real easy to install. You just push down against the spring and pop it apart. Now I prefer to use an old worn out set of pliers where the teeth are all rounded over, and that does less damage on stuff. So now I get a grip on the front, push the back in, rotate, it comes right apart. We just have to make sure we get the right connectors connecting to the right spots on the new one. And this right here is a little light. That'll be a good index point to make sure you have this oriented the right way when you do the connectors. Might as well grab this little light bulb first. My old fuel system was a lawnmower tank going straight to the carb. Even if I did get this fuel pump working, the modern fuels would just dissolve the innards, and I don't want that. It's bad enough when a fuel pump stops pumping fuel. But what's really bad is when they do pump fuel directly into the crankcase, which is where that hole goes. I bought a pump for a different engine. That engine's an AMC 232, but this pump is from an AMC 258, which is just a larger version of the same engine, so it should work. Immediately, you can see it's very different. First off, it's way smaller. That's because this unit isn't just a fuel pump. It has multiple functions. And the fuel comes in this line. Now there's supposed to be a glass bowl on the bottom here. Like this one. It's not here. I don't know if it was broken or removed, but I don't have one. But what would happen is the fuel would come down. Because it was a big volume, it would slow down and any dirt or anything would fall to the bottom of that bowl. It's called a sediment bowl because sediment went to the bottom. The pump pumped the fuel out through this line. You might notice there's a big section up top here too. This is something that's not uncommon in older vehicles. That's a vacuum pump. As this pump moves back and forth, the bottom part pumps fuel, the top part pumps air, and creates suction. If you had vacuum-operated windshield wipers, that would be invaluable. We don't. All I need is fuel. This is for a 75 Cherokee. When vehicles got more modern, they took away a lot of features like that sediment bowl, because those require maintenance, and people didn't like doing maintenance, so they just eliminated it. Now I have a pump that is way smaller and brand new. So it should have rubber internals that are compatible with today's fuels. If you're looking carefully, you can see they mount to the block the same, but the arms are completely different. That threw me for a minute, had to do a little exploration. You can see the cam lobe that actually operates the pump. And I think what happens is one has the arm go down one way, the other one has the arm right on a different surface. Same lobe should power both of them. I'm guessing in is the barb connection, because that's going to be a suction side, and out is a flare connection, because that'll be the pressure side. A lot more clearance on the axle. Now I just need to hook it up, which means I need a flare fitting. Luckily I keep stuff like that lying around. The size looks right. Got a little debris to clear out though. Now I'm going to use a flaring tool to add a bead to the end. All it is to keep a hose from slipping off. That'll work out great. Now the old fuel line coming from the carb also is just a straight line that was cut off with no way for a hose to grip on it. So let's pop that off there. Now we're going to add a lump in this one too. Make sure it grips that hose well. Add a little bit of hose. I even went with a brand new fuel filter and all the way to the carb. We've got a fuel system. But we have no air filter. So I bought an air filter. Just need some kind of housing for it. This is the hubcap I found on the front seat. I'm going to give it a quick wash. I'm going to take this scrap piece of aluminum and use the hubcap to draw a circle on it. So now I can just cut this out. This is pretty tough stuff, little at a time. There, one corner. Speed this up a bit by making a few rough cuts. That makes this easier.
I also needed some way to attach the air filter housing to the carburetor, because the wire that used to do that was missing. So I'll just make one.
This sticks out a little more than I want. I think I'm going to trim that to a little smaller. And now I can use the hole in the center. Then everything I trim is going to be concentric with the carburetor opening. Now that diameter fits well. This hubcap has a number of contours stamped into it. I'm going to flatten those out a little bit and try to even that out. Luckily, that air filter has a nice squishy rubber seal on it, so all I have to do is get it close. Then it'll work fine. It might look like this hubcap's going to restrict the airflow, because there is a pretty good gap here between the edge of the hubcap and the filter. That carburetor has a 2-inch neck, which means it's looking at a little over 3 square inches a cross-sectional area for the air to go through. This has about a 1/2-inch gap here, but on a 10-inch circle. Now you take those 10 inches, multiply it by pi, and then cut it in half, we get a little over 15 square inches. 15 square inches of cross-section going into 3. This is not going to be a restriction. There is a fuel line that is going to go to the fuel pump. I'm hooking my vacuum pump to it to see if we can get fuel out of the tank. Nothing's coming out here, and the gauge is holding vacuum pretty well, which means there's no fuel going through that line at all. It's completely clogged. Here's the next junction of the fuel system. We've got a nice cracked rubber line, and it goes into a metal line on the tank. It kind of wraps around and goes down that way. This line might need replacing. This is holding vacuum too. The clog is further down the line. When I was cleaning up the Jeep, I noticed this access panel. I hope this lets me get to the fuel tank pickup without having to yank the entire tank out. That looks like it. So I'm gonna get the vacuum out first. Got a pile more snail shells. Apparently we had a colony of snails living in this. I have my vacuum pump hooked directly to the pickup in the tank, and that is clogged. So now we get to take that out. I soaked the whole thing in penetrating oil. Hopefully we can get this apart without anything breaking. Nope, broke it. Broke the wire. Who needs fuel level anyway? There's the retaining ring. I think it's stuck in there pretty good. There we go. It does look like there is some deterioration here. Smells like gas. Old, varnishy paint gas. Let's see if we can get this thing cleaned up and working. It doesn't really matter that I broke the wire off the sending unit, because the sending unit is rusted solid, so it wouldn't have done anything anyway. And the connector is not even connected anymore. There's no way that would have done anything. So it's a good thing I broke it. Saved some time. Looks like we have a clog here. Let's see if we can drill through this stuff. It's goopy. Old wood screws work pretty good for cleaning out stuff like this. You can thread them in, and then when you pull, it drags the goop with it. There's a lot of junk in there. The stuff in there is acting like tar, so I'm going to try a little carb cleaner to soften it up. Turns black instantly. Means we're dissolving something. Nothing's flowing through though. What I have here is an old piece of choke cable housing. It's totally clear now. This old sock on the end doesn't look like it'll do any good at all anymore. I bought some cheap ones a while ago for a different project. It's a smaller one, but seems to actually just fit. So I think I'm going to try that and see how it goes. There, that's on there pretty decent. I think we might be good. Now everyone that knows what they're doing will have seen how this came out and know that that tank should be drained and cleaned before I ever think about using it again. So I'm just going to drop this right back in and use it as is. Now what I am going to do is replace this piece of line with another fuel filter. And now all the junk I didn't clean out of the tank get hot here before it goes to the fuel pump. I'm probably going to have to change this pretty often for a while. It seems easier than dropping the entire tank.
The float bowl was overflowing as it ran.
Now it looks like it's reading 0, but I think the problem is the needle kept that way to 0. There's fuel spraying out. Yep. Dribbling out there. Now that's about the pressure I should have been running. The problem is not with that needle and seat at all. The problem is that brand new fuel pump. I think now the engine's warm, this is a good time to change the oil. Well, that's not as free-flowing as I expected warm oil to be. The pan's definitely warm. Now we got chunks. There's got to be a pile of sludge in the bottom of that pan. There's some more solids coming out. We're going to let this go for a while. Got fresh oil in it. Even put on a new oil filter. I was taking off the old license plate and all of a sudden it popped forward. The whole license plate is on a hinge with the license plate light. Gonna address this taillight issue because it's got some problems. Try to grip it, turn it, easy. Luckily, I got a drawer for this kind of thing. This is what we need. Well, that part's solved. Luckily, this is a passenger side light because I can buy those brand new still. This came from BJ's Off-Road, so we can have a brand new lens. It even fits. Nice. On the left side, there's a small crack in here, but most of the lens is there, which is good because these have been discontinued. Off comes the oversized tire. This thing's still holding the air, by the way. That's a keeper. I gotta deal with this broken stud. There we go. Ooh, those shoes show quite a bit of wear. That might be an issue. Now, if these were the original brake shoes from the 60s, they might have had asbestos in them, which means there might have been a lot of asbestos dust that just came out. I know these have been redone because a lot of stuff is backwards from what the factory did. So this is probably not asbestos dust, but either way, I'm going to stand far back and douse this whole thing with liquid. If you hit it with an air hose, you get dust everywhere. And if it is asbestos, that's bad. I gotta pop that bad stud out. One thing you don't want to do is just set it down and press. You're holding it on the edge of the drum, putting load in the center, you're putting a lot of force on that drum. So take a socket or something, put it over the head here, and that way, when you press down, it's being supported right where it's pressed in, not having to transmit the force through anything else. Now I'm going to hold it off the floor a little bit. And there we go. I found some studs on clearance, 66 cents a piece. That is a price I like. The only problem is they're right-hand thread. And of course this one has 4 left-hand thread studs in it. I don't want to put in just one different thread, so I'm going to replace all 5. You can take these studs out with a hammer, but a better option is a hydraulic press. You can use the same well-used socket. Make sure when it sits flat, it's right underneath it. I can press this right here, and I will push that stud out, but I might much from the end. I'm going to take one of the old lug nuts. I'm going to thread the lug nut in until they're pretty flush, so we're pressing on both surfaces at the same time. And now we have a stud removed completely cleanly. Comparing these new ones before installing them, you can see the knurled section is considerably longer. I could go ahead and machine this shoulder off a little bit to make sure it's straight all the way down to the hub surface, or I can add a spacer in the backside to make it so it doesn't stick in as far. Also noticing the heads on the original ones are much larger than the heads on the new ones. So I'm going to go with a spacer that's also a washer to spread the load around a little more.
I want these to fit very tightly, so I'm taking a washer the next size down and reaming it out.
You can see there's still a little bit of knurling sticking out. It's not a whole lot, but a little bit. So I'm just going to make sure this is good before I go and put the other ones in. I put it on without a rim in place, and then I'm going to measure how much is sticking out. I'm going to take that same stud and same lug nut. I measure the stick out again. It's over an 1/8 inch less sticking out, which means that nut is stopping on the rim, not running into the end of that stud. So we're good. We can put them all in now. I put in 3 studs, but I still had 2 remaining of the old ones. You can see that seam there. This drum is held onto that hub with the studs. So I popped all of them off, the whole thing would come apart. Now I got 3 new ones, that'll hold it in. I can pop out my old ones and get this job done. I got a bag just for left-hand lug nut stuff, and now I got 4 left-hand wheel studs I can add to it. So next time I need just one, I'll already have it sitting here. While I'm here, I decided to take a peek at the wheel cylinder. That's not entirely encouraging. See what the other side looks like. Yeah, stuff is falling out, so I probably should do something about that. There goes the spring. That's not too bad.
I'm using an air hose at the front of the brake line to flush out any debris in the whole system.
I got a bunch of old wheel cylinder kits collecting dust on the shelf. I hope one would work. They don't. This one, here's my old cup. It has the right outer cups, but the inner ones are 2 different sizes. So that one won't work. I have another one next to it. This one is also wrong. But these outer cups are completely wrong. But the inner ones look like the right size. So we're going to use the outers from one kit, the inners from another, and hopefully we can have a wheel cylinder. Got these left over from the covered wagon project. What do you think the chances are they fit? Now I've got the wheel cylinder pieced together from leftover kits. I've got shoes left over from another project. I think we're about ready to put the drum on. I want to make sure this taper is pretty clean and smooth. That way the hub and drum go on all the way. And got a good solid mounting here. At least as solid as you can get with a 2-piece axle system. Okay, got the taper on the drum all cleaned up too. So now, I can slide this together. Because there's a limited slipper end and the other side is on the ground, I won't be able to turn this easy once I lock it down. So I'm going to do a rough adjustment on my brakes right now while this still spins on the taper. I can hear the dragging. It's locked. There we go. I'm going to drop my key in place. I'm going to throw some lube on the threads and on the washer here. That way it'll act like a thrust washer. When I tighten down this nut, all the torque will be used for squeezing this thing together. I know that takes a lot of torque. Once I get a tire on here and it's on the ground, I'll finish up torquing that. And that'll happen soon because we now have all 5 bolts ready for a wheel.
The old master cylinder was bad, but it wasn't a big deal because I could buy a new one for under $30. This is where things started going wrong.
Now just to be clear, this is the wrong master cylinder. The seller assured me it would not fit this application. But I went ahead and paid $120 because it didn't just have this master cylinder in it. It also included a vacuum booster and some brackets. And these brackets I think are really critical. This is a problem I've run into before. When I put a 5-speed in this J10, I found that you can't have a clutch master cylinder and a vacuum booster on the firewall here. On this one, I went with a Hydro Boost powered off the power steering pump. There's no power steering pump on this engine, so it's not an option. I think those brackets will move that booster far enough from the firewall that it might be right about here, and I think it might clear. Here is where the brake master cylinder comes into the vehicle. This original master cylinder mounts on a 2-bolt flange. I see below where the master cylinder mounted, there's 2 more bolts. Now that brake booster is going to go right in this area where that throttle cable is attached. But I can move this to a different location. So for now I'm going to remove it, put this in place, and then see where I need to be. I haven't been using the choke cable anyway. We'll just delete that entirely for now. There. Now we got a lot more room to play with. That'll fit in there now. When I did the last 2 bolts, I discovered this is a block-off plate. By taking this off, I can use this as a hole pattern to make my new holes in these brackets. I tried a couple different placements. I finally think I have the bolt holes where I need them to be. On this one, I'm going to take a little bit off the edge too, because that side of the flange was hitting the clutch cylinder and couldn't quite sit where I wanted it. But now, brackets are in. Now I've got the booster in, got plenty of clearance in case the engine wiggles. One neat thing about this master cylinder is it has outputs on this side and on this side. I'm pulling the pedal back all the way, but this arm is just a little bit too long. There's an adjustment on it, but it's in all the way already. There's still going to be around 1 inch of thread engagement, so I have no issues with strength. It'll still have plenty of length adjustment. I got a rubber boot with a CJ5 parts to seal a firewall. Let's see if they fit here. Well, that fits good enough. I need to get some fittings on there. So I cracked open my jar of flare fittings, and I found one that fits there. And these ports are 2 different sizes. Luckily, I found one of those too. So now I got a fitting for front and rear, and I found a brake line left over from another project. Because previously, all 4 wheels worked off this one line, and they all have to connect differently. So I can't supply them the same. This line is 1/4 inch line that fed the brakes before. My fittings are for 3/16 line. The smaller line flows less, but there's going to be 2 of them. So we should be able to still flow enough to make the brakes work fine. Now this is my original junction block for the lines. And this right here is a switch that turns on the brake lights when pressure is applied. Normally it's not tied on with wire, and there's not usually wire nuts involved. It looks like someone ran a new positive here, right next to the tire where it's easy to catch on. Well, that was a good sized nest. Here's where it goes against the sharp metal edge of the inner fender well. And that comes up here to this connection. I might be revising a little bit of this wiring. I took an old switch bracket from a pedal cluster and welded it to the end of a muffler clamp. The connector for this brake light switch is ridiculously expensive, so we're not going to use it. Now, regular spade connectors fit. They're a lot cheaper. I put the muffler clamp on the steering column so I can rotate and adjust this. I clamped it down so the plunger hits the arm of the brake pedal. So before the brake fluid pressure turned on the lights, now just touching the brake pedal does. So all I have to do was wire that into the original wiring and I'm done. I forgot how terrible the original wiring was. What I meant to say was I'm going to take a spare terminal ignition switch, run an inline fuse holder, and fresh wire to this new switch so we're sure we have good power. There's the old brake switch connector, hooked a test lead to it, set it for continuity, because I noticed a bunch of wires going to the turn signal switch, and I bet this is one of those wires. I'm seeing a bare one that's red. What are the chances that's the one I need? Yep, that's the one. So all I have to do is connect this wire to that switch. That's easy. Pressing brakes, letting off. New lines are run, cylinder has fluid in it. Normally you do the initial bleeding without the lines on it, but this had lines on either side, so I can take these plugs out and bleed it through those. While I was bleeding the brakes, I found an issue with the rear brake hose. Let's look in the miscellaneous brake stuff pile. I know there's some hoses here. This new hose I found looks like the ends are the same. It's a little too long, but that's no problem. It's better than too short. The new hoses end. It's a little long, but at least it doesn't hang below the axle. And we might have brakes now. I bought a few bags of fittings to do these brake lines, but I only used a few of them. So the rest go in the bucket for a later project. In my last video on this Jeep, I put bias ply tires on that side. Thanks to your guys' comments, I found out this really is a Kmart tire. I even got a copy of the ad for them.
Those were the days.
As much as I like this one tire, I only have one of them. But don't worry, I'm going to put it to good use, which led me to do something I have never done before in my life, even for my wife's car. I bought a set of 5 matching tires. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're really all the same, even the same year and everything. A fellow had these on a Willys pickup, decided to go with a larger diameter mud terrain, and one of them still has the nubs on it. It's never been on the road. Now they wanted $550 for them. I wanted to pay $400, ended up settling at $440 for the set of 5. So under $100 a tire. I discovered that some of the wheels on here are for a Jeep and fit all the hubs. And some of them are for a Ford and have a smaller diameter in the center. There's no way this rim is going to fit over that hub. So the 2 rear rims only fit in the rear. Luckily, I know how to fix that. Here I've got a Ford rim with a small center hole that doesn't fit my hubs. And here I have a wheel spacer for a Jeep with a 4 1/4 center hole that does fit over the hubs. I'm just going to bolt that spacer in place. Now I add a 4 1/4 inch hole saw.
The single-speed drill started smoking, so I went to one with a low gear. The added torque was helpful.
It's most of the way around. Let's help it the rest of the way. Now, one word of caution, taking out that center section does weaken the rims slightly, but the way I see it is your load on the tire is out here in the bead area. Your constraint, where all those lug nuts are, is right here. So the only stresses on this wheel are between this hole and that bead area. The center really isn't doing a whole lot. Basically, it's just locating. Faster and cheaper than driving somewhere and having someone else do it. Now this is a 30 by 950 by 15 all-terrain tire. Should be totally fine in the street and still okay off-road. And that suits my plan for this just fine. I've got a cotter pin through here. It's just past one of the slots, so I'm going to tighten to the next one, and that'll probably be enough torque. There we go. This is totally unnecessary, but I bought them for that off-road hot rod project. Didn't like it on that, so I've had them sitting around ever since. I like that. I think that works. For some reason, I feel like these leftover Baby Moon hubcaps are right for this Jeep. And it's probably not just because I've been itching for something to put them on ever since I bought them for the last project. I don't like anything going to waste. They fit fine on the back. There's going to be a problem on the front because there's going to be a hub here. So I got to take out the center of them. I could just go with the same hole saw I used to open up the wheels, because I already know that'll work fine. But hole saws aren't particularly fun. I got a better idea. First, I need a way to hold the hubcap. There we go. Then I want the hubcap to be able to spin. So let's just get that tire off the ground here. There we go. Now I don't want to have to spin this thing by hand. Oops. Got a little bit of inertia there. Let's just put that on a flex mount. Precise RPM control here. There we go. Now I need a cutting tool with precise up and down and in and out motion. Well, that worked. You get rid of the burrs while I'm at it. If I had worn style hubs like these, all you do is turn the little dial in the center. I could have gone with a smaller diameter. And I think that's the same axle flange. I could swap them around and go with a smaller diameter. So I think I'm just going to do one for now, sort of see how I like it, and then decide what I want to do next. That was a lot more fun than using a hole saw. Cleaning out this Jeep, and this head has got to go. Found what looks like the old window crank for the back, or what remains of it, and a small wind-up walking bunny. Seen better days. Before the age of tablets, my parents used to give us kids little wind-up toys like these to play with at restaurants and places where they wanted to keep us quiet. I might clean this one up and see if I can get it working better. It's got the right idea. It wants to go, just like this Jeep. Just taking the rear carpet, rolling up everything inside it, throwing the whole thing away. There's baling wire holding almost everything on this thing. This tiny little radiator worked fine around the yard, but when I hit the road, it's going to be way too small. This thing's going to overheat in no time flat. Zip ties are off, and this is out of here. I need a radiator that's narrow enough to fit in here, but big enough to cool an AMC 6-cylinder. And a modern Wrangler radiator looks narrow enough to fit, and it cools a 4-liter 6-cylinder. And that 4-liter is basically the same engine as this one, just making more power. So that should be fine. And they're cheap.
You can buy them for less than $50.
I ended up spending over double the money on this. This is an all aluminum welded radiator, 3 cores, and it was $105. I didn't need to spend this much to get it cool, but I think this will be better. Now we just gotta make it fit. Now I said this was gonna fit. I should have added the word eventually, because it's actually too wide to go straight in. But the reason it's too wide is this big flat flange here, and I know how to fix that. I've got a saw. I'm sure this is the recommended way to trim your radiator. Clean up the burrs a little bit. There. Even got the corners rounded, sort of like factory. Looks like this Jeep is bent in this direction too. So the whole bottom has been squeezed a little bit. Maybe I'll straighten that out first. Here's some more baling wire. Wonder what this used to do. Maybe this is an old radiator mount. I had to do a little more trimming, particularly of the fan shroud mount, but now it fits perfectly. And while I was doing it, I realized it has a fan shroud mount. I'm gonna get a Wrangler fan shroud and see if that will just bolt right in here. But for now, we gotta drill some mounting holes in this radiator. I drew a line from the factory holes so I can transfer them to this new flange. So that'll be right about there. And then I realized I can go straight through this grill, and there's my mounting holes right there. I can mark them right where I need them. Then I also realized an aluminum radiator looks terrible behind this grill. Luckily I test fit this. That cap is gonna hit that underhood support, which means the radiator needs to go down just a little bit. Now we got tons of room between the radiator and the fan blade, and there's a cross member down there that was holding it from going any lower. But I can just go behind that, and that drops the cap down quite a bit. I got a pile of old aluminum coupler nuts. I'm gonna use these as spacers. So I'm just gonna take a long 3/8 bolt, then put my coupler nut on it, which is hard to do while you're holding a camera. There we go. And now we have mounting locations for our radiator. My new hole location is so close to this edge I can't make a complete hole. So I'm gonna make a cutout so that bolt fits most of it. It's always a bad idea just to take a drill and chuck an end mill into it to cut sideways. There we go. It's easy to fix shiny. The radiator's dry and in place, and a regular lower hose for this kind of AMC engine and a Cherokee Wagoneer fit fine. But the upper one had a larger hose for the radiator side, and the Wrangler upper hose had a smaller end for the engine size. So we gotta make something up here. It's time to go to the miscellaneous radiator hose pile. I found 2 pieces of hose. This one's brand new. This one looked real good. That end fits there, that end fits here. I'm going to cut these 2 so they overlap. I also cut a piece of metal tubing that's about the length of the overlap. Now I made a couple marks on the smaller hose. I've got a mark for where I'm going to cut it. Then there's a mark for how far it's going to overlap and an alignment mark. So I'm going to put the sleeve in the small tube in the overlap section. So now there's reinforced metal, that whole section. Cut off the upper tube at the alignment mark. This is a case where if you're really sure what you're doing, you can use rubber cement to glue these together right at this point, but I'm not sure if this is my exact configuration. So I'm just gonna go with this as is, make sure everything fits. The larger end clamped right on. Now on the junction, I put another hose clamp, and you can see that's right where the section where that steel sleeve is. So that lets me crank down on that clamp and holds together everything fine. And the upper hose fits right there. We've got a complete cooling system. It looks like the coolant is right where it should be. It's time to do something about this shackle. It's bent pretty severely that way, which is making the spring take a weird shape, and the leaf spring is running into the tie rod. So none of that is good. Well, there's the leaf spring I removed, and here's the one that was in the back. The pack that came out has 5 leaves on it. The one that I found in the back has 4. This is the other side of the front end. There's 7 leaves on this one. These leaf packs are mainly held together with one center bolt, which just pop right out. Then these clips are to hold everything in line, and they just unfold. So now we got a pile of leaves. All we have to do is make one good spring out of it. I don't want this main leaf because that's the one that's all bent up. This extra one that definitely didn't come from this kind of spring seems like a good one. So I'm going to put that in next. Now these are supposed to go in descending size, but I think I'm just going to double this one up here because I have 2 of them. And I like the leaves to extend as far as possible towards the spring eyes. That way most of your bending happens in the middle. It doesn't twist too much at the end. 5, 6, 7. There we go, 7 leaf spring. I popped almost $3 for a new center bolt.
I'm reinstalling the clips on either side to keep everything in line. I'm mustering over the end of the bolt so the nut can't come off at all.
We have a spring ready to install. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the shackle that was on this spring because it's already on this spring, and that just makes things easier. I have no idea how this thing's going to sit, so we'll try that first and then see if we want to change it. I'm going to use a ratchet strap to pull the 2 springs together, hopefully get that pin to line up. There we go. New spring pack is in. We got clearance between the steering arms and the spring. I think these leaves are a little thicker than the ones on the other side. So I really don't think I need this helper spring. And I really don't like it, so I'm going to remove this. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and grease up all the fittings I see. There should be a grease fitting in there somewhere. There it is.
I finally got my new $29 fuel pump in because the old one was terrible.
It was a brand new pump that was made completely wrong and never would have worked right because the spring was too heavy. Now let me show you what happens here. The camshaft pushes on this lever. There's a diaphragm in here, and then there's a spring. When the camshaft pushes here, it pivots, it pulls that diaphragm back. And then when the camshaft moves away, the spring pushes the fuel forward. There's one-way valves in here, so it only goes in one way, out the other. And you can see this. Watch the gauge there. I'm going to go squeeze it in. Nothing happens. I let go. The spring pumps fuel in. Squeeze it in again. Let it go. Every time I let go, the spring is what makes that pressure. Now that's how these pumps self-regulate. This one is way overpressurized. That spring should never move the diaphragm back forward to push more fuel. They should just sit there in a resting position until the carburetor uses up the fuel, the pressure drops, and then the spring will push more. In this case, the spring is way too heavy, pushing way too much fuel, and so this pump would never regulate like it's supposed to. So thank you people at Delphi, you made something that was absolutely and totally wrong. I checked all 4 parts stores chains in town. Every single one of them sold this Delphi pump. Luckily, Napa sold 2 different ones, and one of them was not this one. Here's my new fuel pump. Look how easy that lever moves. Now I've got my new pump installed. Let's try the same thing. Now I push in, release, pressure goes up. Let's see how much it makes. It's topping out at 7 psi. Now that I can live with.
No more overflow.
You have to deal with this throttle cable, because right now it doesn't do anything useful at all. Obviously I can't put it back where it was because of the brake booster here. I've got to find a new location for it. So let's take it off and see where we can move it to. The return spring was hooked to an old alternator adjusting bracket on the intake manifold, and that works totally fine, so I'm going to leave that as is. The cable was in this hole. I think we're going to move it to one of these, and that way I can give it sort of a downward angle pull. I still have the 2 mounting bolts the original bracket went to, and I have the original bracket. I took the original bracket, flattened this bend here, added a new bend here, cut the entire end off, flipped it over, and welded it back on at a new angle. And now we have a throttle cable that goes underneath the brake booster. I found a double spring in my parts bin. There's actually 2 springs wrapped together, and that provides a safety. If one fails, the other one works. So now we're going to be twice as safe. Let's see how this works. We got brakes. I'm going to see if this bit of rear window handle actually does anything here. It's moving up. It's spinning free. I lift while I turn. It is working, and then spinning, and then working. Definitely an issue in there I got to deal with at some point. As of right now, we got a rear window. Save this for later. This windshield is going to need a little attention. There's a bit of a visibility issue here. And when you're driving, it is important to see where you're going, particularly when it's in front of you. The windshield issue is fixed. I actually priced out windshields, and it would be well over $300 to get a windshield to me. I found a local place to get the glass and have it installed for under $300. So this was both cheaper and easier. I like that. Now in my previous video, I suspected there was an issue with the transmission because of the sound it's making. There's a knocking sound coming from this area. I'm expecting there might be an issue with the transmission, but so far it works, so I'm just ignoring it. I had a few people comment that that was the throwout bearing, not the transmission. Now I have absolutely no problem being wrong, and I appreciate if you call me out if I am. But this is why I think it's the transmission. The throwout bearing on these vehicles is actually supposed to be 50 thou away from the pressure plate. In theory, that throwout bearing shouldn't be spinning. It should be just sitting in midair. So we pressed it a little bit. We still have the sound. Press it all the way to the floor. Now the sound goes away. That throwout bearing is holding the pressure plate open and is spinning right now. And since it's quiet, I'm thinking that that means that the throwout bearing's fine. But when I let it out and the input shaft starts turning, it does that. So I really suspect it's the transmission. I have no problem being wrong, but let me know in the comments what you think, because by thinking about it, we all learn something. The first step is making sure there's oil in the transmission. That'll need no matter what. This Jeep is still loaded on the trailer from when I got the windshield installed. We got ourselves some room under there. So I armed myself with an adjustable wrench, a gallon of gear oil with a pump on it, and a backup gallon of gear oil, just in case. Going in. Let's start with the rear axle. Nothing's pouring out. Don't feel anything in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add some. The rear axle took a little bit, not too much. Transfer case took a little bit, not too much. On to the transmission. Well, it's not over full. It's a little low, but not too bad. We just got it full. Let's try this thing out. Now it has a seat belt. Don't know if it works. Yeah, kind of grips a little bit. We'll call that good enough. First time on the road since 1996. See how this goes. Hey, the speedometer works. Never tried anything but first. Oh, there's second. Third. We got all 3 gears. Definitely a few banging sounds. Brakes are really good. Nice and straight, steers well, stalls every once in a while. Speed bumps are fine. Notice the grinding goes away when I put it in third. We just have the intermittent banging sound.
Besides the clattering, whining, and banging of the transmission, it also seemed to have an issue with the synchros. In both second and third gear.
Some fuel that's less brown. See if that helps with the stalling issue. Oh yeah, it starts right up. Normally in fuel that's a few years old, you'd actually want to drain it. But the fuel that's in this tank is from the 90s, and they had better fuel then. Oops, got an issue. I may have an issue with the fuel filler tube here. We're just going to stop right there and call it good. There'll be a few things to sort out here. We're just gonna cut this test drive short a little bit. The steering and the brakes work great. It rides down the road pretty nice, but those sounds coming out of the transmission have me a little worried. We're gonna stop here before we do any real damage. I'm calling this one a win. This Jeep actually did really well on the road. It started right up, drove fine. The cooling system had no issue. The brakes worked better than they ever did from the factory. They were really good. The only real issue was a grinding, clanging, banging sound that sounded like the transmission was about to fall out of the vehicle. Other than that, it did really well. I'm gonna have to dig into that drivetrain and sort out all those sounds, but that'll be for a different video. There will be future updates on this. But that's the end of this video. My original $200 budget went way out of control. I've got over $1,000 into this now. And that math is a little fuzzy too, because I used some new parts I had left over from other projects that I didn't count, but I have parts that I bought for this that I did count that I saved for other projects. But that's my actual out-of-pocket cost for this vehicle. And in project car world, that's not too bad. But the most important part was, it was a lot of fun. Even small changes make big improvements when you start with the bar this low. Hope you guys are having fun too. We'll see you next time.